Hi, I'm Heather. So Valentine's Day evening, I sat at our church with a few volunteers in our little fellowship hall in South Bend, Indiana, and we sat around waiting for the beginning of our immigration legal aid clinic night. It had been a busy day. It was Ash Wednesday earlier that week, so I was flipping frantically through the Bible, looking for a good passage with which to teach some new English vocabulary words and possibly also give some hints about this guy Jesus to the people that might show up. And I decided at the very last minute, just as the clients were filing in, on the first paragraph of the Gospel of Luke, inasmuch, it's a good one, as many have undertaken to set down an orderly account of these events. Oh, excellent Theophilus. And they were worried about Theophilus. So, the first to arrive were, as usual, Sarah and Mary, who are from Sierra Leone. Mary was totally illiterate. She's never gone to school a day in her life, and she's aged, and so she wants to become a U.S. citizen so that she's not destitute the rest of her life in America. And her case is complex, so we've been helping them for a while. And then a few minutes later, Farhat from Pakistan came in, and she needed some legal advice for herself and her children. And then in came Milad, who's trying, he's a refugee from Iran, who was Baha'i and was being persecuted. He and his family, most of his family members were murdered, and he has a fiancée back in Iran that he's trying to get over here so he can marry her. So he came in for some advice. And then at last, David and Jesse from Liberia, who are forever trying to reconnect their war-torn family, one application at a time. All of these people had come to Tree of Life Anglican Church to see Ron Okoye, the director of our church's immigration legal aid clinic. Ron works tirelessly on behalf of our low-income clients from around the world, most of them refugees, to forge a way of mercy through our complex U.S. immigration system, and he's done some really good work. But while Ron is busy reuniting families and helping refugees and immigrants establish their lives here in the USA, the other volunteers and I have this great privilege of hearing their stories, sitting around at tables and just finding out what it's like in far-off places. We teach them some English, and we even share a little bit of our faith in this quiet way, recognizing that we've got this collection of people coming in. So that night, as we read about Luke's endeavor to give an orderly account about the testimonies of Jesus, I quietly prayed under my breath that the two non-Christians who were gathered there, one a Muslim and the other this persecuted follower of the Baha'i faith, might develop a holy curiosity about this person, Jesus. Sar, Mary's son, who's a Christian, about halfway through the English lesson realizes that there's more at stake here than how do you pronounce inasmuch. And so he just says out of the blue, Luke was a doctor, and he really wanted to make sure that the people after him would know the whole story about Jesus, so he wrote it down because, like in my country, Sierra Leone, not very much was written down. And they wanted to make sure because later there were these people called the Gnostics, and they really messed up the stories about Jesus and made up all kinds of stuff. And the Muslim woman sitting there, her eyebrow cocks up, and she looks at him. The next day, she came back into our church when I was in my office, and she sat down at my desk and she said, "That was a really good English lesson." So about 2 years ago now, our little church began wrestling with Jesus' command in Matthew 25 to welcome the stranger. Tree of Life is a small, like many Anglican churches, it's a small, multi-ethnic, neighborhood-focused church. About 20 years ago, our neighborhood, which is already kind of a diverse place, became the refugee resettlement neighborhood for South Bend. And so for 20 years, if there's been a crisis in the world, we have people from that country in our city or in our neighborhood. And as we began to do ministry in this neighborhood and we knocking on doors, I kind of knew we were diverse and we had some refugees that were in our community, in our church community. But as I began opening doors in the apartment complexes and these houses that all look almost the same, it's like built in the 50s, it's really ugly and boring. Every household is like from a different country. And so we began saying, like, if we're called to this neighborhood, how do we welcome the stranger? We start, thinking about passages like Leviticus 19:34 that says, "You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." And we start wondering, what does it look like to love the immigrant as ourselves? If we were in the U.S. immigration system and coming from another country, what would we want? What would that look like for us? What would it look like to be in this neighborhood and have these people from all around the world and not know how to connect and feel that sort of pressure to ghettoize? And finally, how in the world do we connect with what was turning out to be 25% of our neighborhood that are Muslims? So then about 2 years ago, the ACNA sends out those emails that are like quick little articles, and you could click on them and read them. And one of them mentioned that the U.S. government is asking churches and nonprofits to open immigration legal aid clinics, and the ACNA would love to open like 30 of them. If you're interested, write an email. And so I thought, wait, I'm always filling out forms for people on the USCIS website, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm probably going to get someone deported someday. Like, we should probably know how to do that. And so I wrote the email. And about a year later, Tree of Life opened, I'm thinking, so I could be wrong, the ACNA's first fully operational immigration legal aid clinic, though it is not the last. There's a bunch of people in this room, I think, that are working on opening this and opening these up, and it's happening. And since then, about a year ago, Tree of Life has been able to help dozens of refugees and immigrants find legal permanent ways to be in the United States. We've allowed families to stay together, and also we have these amazing stories of beginning to bring families back together, because so many of these are refugees, and so somebody's left behind, or somebody got trapped in a camp at this country and they never did make it over to where we are. And so people who can't read and write in a lot of cases and have just felt baffled and trying to figure all of this out, they're coming, and they keep bringing their relatives, and they keep bringing more and more people, and these families are coming together. But best of all, through all of this ministry, God is bringing us into really exciting relationships with people who I don't think would ever otherwise set foot in our church at all. And as we see these goods of legal justice and mercy happening in their lives, we are praying that they're also going to begin experiencing, and I think they already are, the goodness of Jesus Christ, who we, as we've been talking about, are experiencing as we welcome them into our church and we welcome him. So I'd love to talk more if anybody has questions about immigration ministry and what it's like and the legal boring stuff. It's been a really great adventure. So thanks.